Our next guest speaker actually needs no introductions. He is well known as someone who has spent his life being a friend to everyone. He could be the role model for a bestseller of stories of success and fame. His parents, Sammy and Bertie Keith Tarter of Cedar Springs community, had 5 children: Leon, Harvey, Wilbur, Bernice, and Eileen. The children walked to a one-room schoolhouse in Capitol Hill. He said how every day before school started, the children in the class would hold hands while the teacher read a Bible verse. Then school began. He also recalled to us how in the wintertime, when walking to school in the rain would be freezing in his sister's hair by the time they arrived to school. Leon was inducted into the Army in 1943 and served our country during World War II with the 79th Infantry Division. I'm honored to ask World War II veteran, friend, and gentleman Leon Tarter to please come to the podium.
Thank you so very, very much. This is one of the nicest gatherings that I've been to in a while. I just was looking around over the crowd, and what a good-looking crowd we've had. You know, we have a sale about every Saturday, and I tell them how good-looking they are, but this time I mean it. Thanks, everybody. I certainly appreciate them asking me to be here. I've got a long story, but we're not going to get into some long stories. Ms. Miller, I appreciate you. She and the web lady came down and carried me to lunch one day. So if you got anything else to do, come down and take me to lunch, and I'll think about it. I was inducted from the Army from Brownsville, Kentucky. And I was working in a defense plant in Evansville, Indiana. And I came back here and went back to Evansville and was examined, and went to Atterbury, Indiana. And then we went to Fort Riley, Kansas. And I don't know whether the Lord's ever found Fort Riley, Kansas or not, but it's still there if it's not covered up with dust. But anyhow, I stayed there about 20 months, and I took training to be a cavalry scout. I was the same thing in the Army as you see in the cowboy movie, and the scouts went out and found out where the Indians were and come back and reported to the captains and so on, and that's what we did. We went behind enemy lines a lot. But when we went behind enemy lines, we had a little laser plane that talked to our lieutenant all the time. We was back there to keep us getting caught and trapped and so on. Sometimes we got out all right, and sometimes we didn't. It was so good. Anyhow, it was a long, long story. We landed. Now, don't get me wrong here. We did not land D-Day, or I wouldn't be here today. They had a man on television from Germany about 20 years ago, 30. That was, he was a German soldier in one of those pillboxes up there that we looked up at. He estimated he killed 600 Americans. He wasn't proud of it because he cried about it. But anyhow, it was almost impossible what was going on, but that's the way it was. My division landed the 9th and 10th. D-Day was a 6th, so there's a lot of difference between that. We fought Cherbourg and come up the coast from Cherbourg to a little town named Haiti-Free. Little French town, and boy, they was waiting for us there. We lost 1,000 boys out of our unit that day, the Haiti-Free. About 500 was captured and about 500 was killed. That afternoon late, We pulled out, we backed up. It was too bad. We backed up 2 or 3 miles, and sometime during the night there was about 50 or 60 big bombers come in there and bombed that little town. And the next morning we went in. We never heard a baby cry. We never heard a dog bark. We never heard a sound. Everything in that town was dead. There wasn't a house standing, there wasn't a building standing. So they built a monument there out of blue marble. The French did. Said, thanks, 79th Division, for liberating our town. And my lady that does my taxes was over there, and she took a picture of it and held it back to me, and so and so. So we went on, and we made a river crossing in Holland. Patton sent for us to go up there, go to Holland, make a spearhead. So we as an individual private didn't know where we was going or what we was going to do. So when we traveled 2 days and nights, and we got to Holland where we were supposed to go, and we got there about 11 o'clock at night. And the next morning there was pamphlets all over the street dropped by the German planes that night, said, welcome 79th Division to Holland for the Rhine crossing. We didn't even know it ourselves. The officers knew it, but we didn't know. But they was after us every minute. They knew exactly what we was going to do and wasn't going to do. It was amazing. Anyhow, we got through a whole lot of things like that. I happened to be in church down in Tennessee a few months ago with a fellow and had 8 children. 2 of the little girl was going to be baptized, and he invited me to come down to the church to go with him, and I did. And quick the church was over, the preacher said something about there'd be a World War II man there, and quick the church over, the man and his wife come rushing over to where I was and said, did you happen to be in Holland when you was fighting the Germans? I said, yeah, we made a Rhine crossing. He said, me and my family was in a bomb shelter there, and we were scared to death. And I said, I was too. So anyhow, it's a small world. So he said he was 7 years old at that time, and I was 19. I was 18 when I got to Germany, and I had a 19th birthday over there. So we crossed the Rhine River one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, and four small boats with 25 to the boat. There wasn't nothing over there but holes. They had bombed it to death. So they started building a pontoon bridge, 2 lanes. They made it rainbow where the water would be pushing on it. And about 1 or 2 o'clock the next afternoon, they had the bridge, and here come Patton's tanks. Some way or another, there's a German Tarter tank survived all that. It was about half covered with dirt, but it was going up the road as fast as they could go. This German Tarter tank hit one of those Patton tanks, and the side knocked it off of the road. There was a boy in that tank from Glasgow, Kentucky. It broke his back and both legs. He went to the hospital in Holland and stayed a while, and they transferred him to England. They made up money in Barron County and sent his mother to England to see him. And she would have probably been more happy if she hadn't gone. He didn't make it. So I get calls, believe me, I get calls for several years saying, I was doing this, or I was writing a book, and you was here, and you was here, and I'd like to find out. I got a call from a lady from Virginia about 2 months ago. She had found this in the War Department some way or another, that I was in this battle, and I'm the only one living out of my company that landed. 160 of us that landed Utah Beach, I'm the only one living. I'm 94. And to me, that's kind of sad. I knew all those nice boys when they was 18 years old and 19 and having fun. But when we landed, we went overseas in an Aquitania boat, an English boat, a big boat. 10,000 troops aboard. We didn't know it, but there was a submarine. Our submarine followed us, an aircraft carrier after that, and another 10,000 in the boat, and we was all at the 101st Airborne and the 82nd Airborne and the 79th Division, but all going to Normandy, France, and so on for the landing. So we didn't go to England, we went to Ireland, because the waters was a little tough in there. We landed in Ireland, and we had to take a train, took several train loads on into England. But when we got off a boat in Ireland, there was a lieutenant there that I knew, I got acquainted with, and there was a sign, about 4-foot sign. I noticed right on the bottom, said Bowling Green, Kentucky. I said, look here, Captain, Bowling Green, Kentucky, that's my hometown. I thought that'd sound good. Oh, you from Bowling Green? Yeah. But right up the top I read it says 460 miles to Pauline's, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Well, now I done have myself under trap. So then he began to ask me some questions that was kind of hard to answer, and said, "You're from Bowling?" I said, "No, I'm from Brownsville." He said, "How far are you from Bowling Green?" I said, "Oh, I'm 2 or 3 hours from Bowling Green." He said, "Well, I went from Louisville to Nashville one time. It didn't take me that long." I said, "Yeah, but you was in the car. I was talking about walking." Well, anyhow, we had quite a talk, and he said, "You ever been to Pauline's?" I said, "Nah." He said it again. I said, "Nah." He said, "If you had been, would you lie about it?" I said, "Yes." So anyhow, we dropped that subject quick as I could. So we went on into, everybody's going to England. They live different than what we live. They live very nice, and they do this and get together and sing, and I thought they were wonderful people. So anyhow, but we was all waiting to go to Normandy, and it was all a lot of fun until we went around the beach there, and there was 4,000 or 5,000 boats, and well, you just never seen nothing like it. And they had big cables running from them 4,000 feet in the air, keeping airplanes hitting them. And now this was on the 9th and 10th now. These days doesn't happen. So when you come off over the side of the boat in a rope ladder, drop down in there in the landing craft, you better make sure you hit the landing craft, because if you missed it, you was gone. Now what a lot of mothers didn't understand, when this landing craft got close to about 200 feet from the shore there, they would drop the front door down and throw it in reverse at the same time, because those German fighter planes would come over that hill so fast, and they had 7 or 8 machine guns on them. They'd shoot right inside of that landing craft and kill half of them. So they had to do something quick. So they put about 50 German prisoners on the beach there. Said, "Now boys, just come on. You can't kill us without killing them." So that kind of stopped it. But what people didn't understand, they dropped that front door down and throw it in reverse at the same time, and everybody just kind of fell out in a big pile. And 2 or 3 on the bottom would drown practically every time. I saw no telling how many boys floating in the water with their packs still on, where they drowned it, trying to get off. So it is something all the time. And I'm going to tell you one story, and I've got lots of stories about what happened and so on. We went on lots of patrol behind the enemy lines to get boys out and find out what was there. When we run into tanks, we didn't call our tanks, we called our Air Force. At one time at Normandy there, our lieutenant got up on it and we could see a cloud of dust. Lieutenant got up on the hood of the Jeep and said, "Oh my God," and just kept saying that. He went back and he called headquarters and he come back again. There was about 800 German tanks a-coming. Well, everybody thought, well, we're fixing to be killed. There was about 20,000 GIs dug into foxholes all as far as you could see. Everybody said, well, we're going to be killed. So he called headquarters, our lieutenant did, and they said, stay at all costs. So nobody slept that night. Nobody even tried to sleep. We talked about a little bit of everything. The next morning, about a little after daylight, I don't think I'm exaggerating any, there was 500 or more little American fighter planes coming there. They had a little bomb about the size of about the size of a basketball. They called it a jetty bomb. They'd dive straight down at those tanks, and they'd drop that little bomb on them, and it would splatter, and it gets so hot they couldn't stay in there. Their ammunition would start going off. Then there was 20,000 GIs dug in when they come out over the top. They'd get them. So about 1, 2 or 3 o'clock that afternoon, they took the tail and run back into Germany. So I said then, boys, there's a way to do everything. Who had ever dreamed about those little planes could do that? But we had so many more than they did. So on down the road, we'd got into Germany. We'd been fighting for 6-8 months. The winter of '44, we only stayed in the house one night. We slept under. I slept under my Jeep. I had a machine gun Jeep with sandbags in it. I'd sleep under there because if a shell hit a tree, it would splash, and you'd need to be under something. So one particular night, the lieutenant said, we're going to stay in the house tonight if we can. And sure enough, there was a house we found empty there. We were going to spend the night there. We were going to get some sleep if we could. The way we slept, we'd sleep 2 hours and then on guard 2 hours. So we went in that house and put it out to guards, and we started eating some cheese and so on, whatever we had. Had our guns down, and all of a sudden, somebody knocked on the door. Everybody looked around. What in the world? About that time, the door opened. 5 German soldiers walked in with their hands over their head. All they had to done is throw those hand grenades in there, and they wouldn't have to come in. But our guards was out, and all we could figure out is they was under the house somewhere. So you never can tell. They always come from somewhere. So anyhow, we had 44 boys that had been captured, and they was in a house in a little town named Staten Mountain. It's about twice the size of Brownsville. Our lieutenant had been in trouble, and he had lost his bars, and he was a private, but he was acting as our lieutenant, and he was trying to get them back. He made a deal. We didn't know it. He'd get them boys out if they gave him his bars back. And they made some kind of agreement. So we met this little town, 12 of us on foot. I was one on foot. We had an armored car. We borrowed a tank from the tank division there, a light tank that go fast. We had a machine gun Jeep, 12 of us on foot. So we stopped before we got into town. They issued us tracer bullets that would set anything afire that we shot. And the lieutenant says, we're going to set this town afire, and while they're fighting the fire, we're going to get them boys out. So we got into town, and we've run into a lot more resistance than we thought. But there was a row of houses on the right side, was big 2- and 3-story houses. The best I remember, they're like weatherboarded houses. We had 7, 8 of them burning. Off as far as you ever saw. We was across the street. That lieutenant says, they sent us over here to kill these people, and that's what we gonna do. I want everything that moves shot. And this little boy said, Leon, are you gonna shoot women and children? I said, no, I'm not. I said, he said, do I have to? I said, no, you don't have to. So we stayed there, and we had so much resistance that we couldn't do nothing. We couldn't, you could stick your helmet out the door and if you wasn't careful, 2 or 3 shots would hit it. It was full of people. But we had a medic, a special medic that would speak good German. He was worth his weight in gold. Well, that afternoon, by 3 o'clock, we had lost our machine gun jeep. They had knocked our tank out. There was 7 out of the 12 left, and 1 armored car. So this medic could speak German. He saw that we was in bad shape. So he went down side of those buildings, down the street, with a big white flag, hollering something in German. We didn't know what it was. We thought he was trying to surrender us, and we almost took a shot at him. But anyhow, he was on our side, we didn't know it. But anyhow, he went down and he talked to them guys in German, and he told them we had thousands and thousands of people behind us, which wasn't true, but they believed it. And in a few minutes, him and 2 German officers came out with white flags, and the 68 give up to us. And 7 of us walked out, and they like to died. But in the meantime, it got so bad, me and this boy named Kostreva run around behind the house and went in a little barn there, went up in the, and he said, I'm going to go up in this hay mow and see if I can see where all the shooting's coming from. I said, well, I'll go with you. So we threw our rifles all across the back and started up this ladder. Just as he got even with this loft, there's 2 German soldiers in that hay. They raised up, shot him. I didn't even see him, but at that time, he fell down on me. I fell down on the ground. I'm looking straight up at them, and they got their guns pointed both of them, looked up right in my face. I began to scream and cry and pray, and I was saying, Lord, don't let them kill me. And I was screaming and begging for my life. In a few seconds, they start talking to each other. I didn't know what they're saying, but in a few, I'd say they talked for a minute. Directly, they put their hands up and laid their gun down and give up and come down that ladder and give up to me. The Lord was holding my hand. He had to be. So they give up to me, and we got all those prisoners, took them back. We got the boys out, 44 of them. They run, we was 4 miles behind enemy lines. They run 4 miles back. And that wasn't no big task for them. So anyhow, I've got lots of stories that's happened that I don't want to get into. And I don't want to make you think that I'm some kind of a hero. I was just an old dog-faced infantryman. I saw quick as I got out in the world. I went to high school here in Brownsville 2 years, and then I quit and went to work. But I saw when I got out in the world that education was very, very important. When I got to be examined, I wanted the Navy, or I wanted something. I wanted something besides carrying a pack and a rifle. And so I passed examination. I told this fellow, I said, I'd like to get on the Navy. He said, oh, you're colorblind. I said, well, I ain't colorblind. He said, yes, you are. You're going in the Army. So that's all I could get because I didn't have an education. It's very, very important to get an education. Because when you get out in the big world and start swimming in the big ocean, it's a different thing. So teach their children if they want to make a good living for themselves and their wives and children, they need to get prepared. Thank you, everybody. I love every one of you, and thank you so much for coming and listening to my story. And I'll give you just a little auction chant here. 80 minutes, all right, 30 minutes, 25, 30, 30, 35, 40, 40.